All right, we're here today for a Veterans History Project interview with Mr. Jack McCaw. He was a veteran of World War II and served aboard the LSM 368 while he was in the military. So, what we'll do is just start off. And, Jack, I'd just like to ask you, where were you when you heard about Pearl Harbor? How did that affect you?
I heard about Pearl Harbor. It was on a Sunday morning. I was home, was getting ready to go to church, and we heard that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor.
So,
And that was in 1941 was
okay.
when that happened.
So, how did your family react to that, to the news?
Well, as you would think, we thought it was terrible. Somebody sneak attack, that's terrible. It still is.
Mm-hmm. So, what was your opinion of Japan at the time? I mean, did you think that they were picking a fight that they couldn't win, or?
Well, my opinion of Japan wasn't that great. I'm not going to tell you what,
Sure.
Navy talk is, I don't know if you want Navy talk on this thing or not, but
It's your
it
interview.
wasn't that great.
It's your interview, so you talk however you want to talk. So,
Okay.
um, well, so what? How did your? So at that time, did you decide to enlist? Like, how long was it before? Like, were you even graduated from high school yet?
Well, that was in 41. I graduated. I didn't get to graduate because I joined uh, the Navy in March 30th of 1945. And I was old enough to have graduated, but I guess what? My mother picked up my graduation diploma, and then I was headed to San Diego, California, in the Navy. That was in 1945, March of
March of
1945.
45. Okay, great.
Yep,
So at that
I'm
point,
I'm one of the older people.
so at that point in the war in Europe with Germany was kind of winding down. It sounds like in 1945, and but
That's right.
the Pacific War was still raging.
Well, I wanted to tell you about in World War II. They made what they called LSTs, landing ship tanks.
Hmm.
They were 300 feet long, just to carry supplies back and forth. And they found out that they were too heavy when they went in. They could not back off. So guess what? They thought, well, we're going to make a shorter model. They cut 100 feet off of 300, so that the ship that I was on was 200 feet. Same engine, same everything, and we could back off. We were light enough that we could do that. That's why they made and they made 400 of them in less than a year to invade Japan.
So that was the express purpose for it, was for the invasion of Japan.
Yes, yes, they were made for the invasion of Japan, and we were there ready to do it when they dropped the bomb.
Really?
And that was in August. We were going to invade of November of 1945. It was all planned out, and they've got a statistic. If they hadn't dropped the bomb, the first one we were going to hit was the island of Honshu, and there would have been 80 some thousand American casualties
Mm.
in if we'd had gone in with the LSM. By the time it was all over with, there had been 1,200,000 American casualties and 8 million Japanese. So you got to thank President Truman for saving a lot of lives.
It's interesting you say that because every veteran that I've spoken to that was in the Pacific Theater has this exact same sentiment, which is,
Yes,
that
he saved. Well, I don't know what, he dropped two of them, and I don't know what the casualties would have been. Nothing like what would have happened if they had not dropped the bomb.
hmm
And Truman did it. He did it all on his own.
hmm
He's a good man in my book.
Okay, yeah. So, well, let me back up a bit. And
Okay, back up any place you want.
so, when you just found out you were going to get into the Navy, so you said your
Yep.
mom picked up your diploma, and then you were headed to into the Navy essentially. How did you decide to do
I
that?
went to San Diego.
Okay, did you enlist? Were you drafted? What was the kind of the situation at the time?
No, I enlisted. I was not going to be drafted because
Okay.
I wanted to be. I thought I thought I could be in the Navy and get seasick, and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether this is good or not, but I've got to tell you, when you get seasick, my buddy was really seasick, so we were standing upside on the tank deck, and he was having a problem with heaving, and a boatswain mate come up and tapped him on the shoulder, and he said, "Hey mate, if you feel a little hairy ball, don't spit it out. That's your asshole." True story. I still remember
Oh, that's great.
it.
So whenever you decided to get in the Navy, what made
Yep.
you choose that branch over the other, like the Army and the Marines
Well, I didn't want to dig a foxhole. I didn't like the digging and I didn't like the mud, so that's why I chose the Navy.
okay,
It was my own free will and accord was why I did it.
yeah. So what was your training like for that?
Well, in my company, there were 120 of us, 120 of us, and we got trained in about 6 weeks, ready to go and conquer the world. And we thought we could, but we had a hell of a time getting there.
Hmm. So for your role, what was your role on the ship itself?
I was in the engine room, and we had two 16 cylinder Fairbanks Morse, which we could turn on a dime. We put one forward and one reverse, and we could turn right. And they were very maneuverable. And we had a tank deck that we could carry three tanks and a couple of hundred guys, and we could go clear into shore and drop the front deal and put an anchor on, and we could pull ourselves off. So luckily, we didn't have to do that.
Yeah,
We just got to go in and see the good parts of Japan.
yeah. So your role in the engine room, was it an engine operator then, like
Well, I was a chief fireman,
chief fireman?
fireman chief. Yep.
Okay.
And that sounds good, but I was just a lowly seaman, is what it was.
So throughout your training then, how long did it take from the time you actually got in the Navy till you were on a ship and you're actually
Uh,
on at sea?
we had 6 weeks of training, and then we went to Coronado Island, which was an island at that time. There was not a bridge there, and then we learned all about the insides of an LSM, all the working details of it.
Okay.
And that was about 8 weeks after I got over to Coronado Island.
Okay. Now, was that ship, did it carry any armament at all?
Oh, absolutely. We had a gun right on the bow, a gun which actually fired, and we could actually shoot somebody. Luckily, we didn't have to do that.
So what size of
And
gun?
we all had firearms. We had rifles and pistols that
Okay.
we could pack. We had them.
Now, did you have quarters on the ship that you were able to stay in?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. If you like to sleep right next to somebody, it was a beautiful place. They were just crammed in as close as you could get.
I interviewed a Marine who fought in the Pacific, and he talked about riding in. I think these were alligators, and some of these were,
Absolutely,
some of
the names really rings a bell.
yeah. And he talked about riding in the earlier versions of these ships because he was out by the time that you were in. But he talked about how loud they were, and they had these huge engines in there, and the carbon monoxide was pretty bad and everything. So hopefully, how were the conditions aboard the ship for you?
Well, when you're there and you're young, it doesn't make a damn. You're going to be what you're doing,
Hmm.
and didn't really make that much difference of where you are or what you were. You were there,
Hmm.
and we if they hadn't dropped the bomb, I guarantee you, we'd have been in Japan.
Hmm.
It would not have been a pretty deal, but it would have happened.
So when you went to sea and you were on your tour essentially, Was that March 31st of 45 when you actually went out, or is that, what is that date specifically?
When I really went overseas was about 8 weeks after I joined, so it would have had to been in April, May,
April or May. Okay.
and we were in San Diego at that time,
Okay. Okay. So,
and actually we were on Coronado Island, and it was an island at that time.
mhm. So did you guys
Yep,
go to, did you, in May of 45, the Battle of Okinawa would have just been kind of wrapping up roughly. Um, did you guys head to Okinawa? Were there any islands that you went on your path over to the west?
we were actually headed right to Japan, Sea of Japan. That's where we were headed. When we got there, and this is pretty hard to believe that there were over 200 U.S. Navy ships there. And I got to tell you a really good story about this one. I was on we went around and picked up stuff, and we pulled up to this great big old battle wagon, and I looked up there, and my first words were, "What the hell are you doing here?" It was a kid from Waitsburg up on top, and I didn't even. Of course, I was from Prescott. We're 8 miles apart, and the only thing I ever knew about him, we always had a hell of a time playing basketball against each other. So I yelled up to him, "What the hell are you doing?" And he yelled down to me, "Well, what the hell are you doing here?" True story.
It's a small world, isn't it?
That was a small world. Bobby Estes was his name. I'll never forget him.
So when you left then from Coronado
Yep,
Island in May of 45,
yep,
and
yep,
you were already heading straight to Japan.
absolutely.
So was there the suspicion was, or they suspected that it would take that long to get across, the ocean because the
I'm trying to
invasion
think
was.
how long. It was a long trip. A lot of seasick guys puking over the side too.
Do you know
That's
how fast your ship could travel?
9 knots,
9 knots. Okay.
which is damn slow.
Yeah, there's a lot of cargo ships that I've read about that travel even slower than that, and it would take months for them to get across the
A
Pacific.
long time.
And that sounds like that was the case for yours
Yep,
also.
exactly right.
So when you were out to sea, then um, you said you didn't have any stops along the way. You were heading straight to Japan.
True.
So at what point did you hear about the atomic bombs being dropped? Like, what was your opinion? Or, I mean, was it elation? I'm
Well,
sure
I
it
think
was.
I think we were damn excited that we didn't have to go in hand to hand. It
Yeah.
would have not been a pretty deal. It would have happened though. It would have happened.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I'm sitting here talking to you.
Yeah.
Really.
Well,
And I'll be 95. I'll be 95 my next birthday.
well, fantastic.
Yep. And I still farm the ground. And my granddad came here in 1898. I'm still a farmer, and I
Really?
still farm the same ground. Yep. 1898, and he came from down south of Oregon, and he had a good story too. He was on a horse going to ride up to see maybe where he was going to buy some land, and he got a little past Pendleton, and he saw somebody coming on a horse, and he said, and he knew it was an Indian. And he said, "Well, I just will stop and see what he wants." So he stopped, and the Indian wanted to buy his horse. So that was a break. He heaved a sigh of relief on that one. That was in 1898.
So how much land, how much ground do you farm?
Well, I've added the original ground that my dad had that I had 500. I have about 1,400 acres now.
Okay.
I've been very lucky buying surrounding ground. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm what they call land poor.
Land poor, what do you mean by that?
I mean, you're damn lucky if you can know what the price of wheat's going.
Ah,
We live on what the price of wheat is,
okay.
and it's been from top to bottom, and no matter what it is, you're still there.
And sorry, what town is it that you actually live in or nearby?
I actually came from Prescott, Washington,
Prescott. Okay.
and I think the most people we ever had there was 250,
Okay.
and most of them were farmers or from around. and they're still that way.
So geographically, where in Oregon is that?
Now, Washington.
I'm sorry, Washington. Where at
Yeah,
whereabouts?
we're about 20 miles north of Walla Walla. Everybody knows where Walla Walla is.
Yeah. Okay, good.
And I'm about 20 miles north of Walla Walla.
So,
Small town.
okay, so when you getting back to your World War II service, when you
Yeah,
did you go on into Tokyo Bay?
absolutely. I spent my 19th birthday in Tokyo. Not too many Prescott kids got to do that. And I had a free trip over and back, too. And they fed me both ways.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it
So
was good.
you weren't there though, however, for the surrender ceremony. Would that be correct?
No, we were outside.
Okay.
We were just ready to go in when they had the surrender deal.
Okay,
Yes.
so you did arrive then in
Oh yeah.
early September.
We were.
Okay.
We were. If the surrender deal would have been a lot different if we'd had gone in and taken them, and which would have happened.
hmm
Which would have happened.
So what was the feeling like as you approached Tokyo for the surrender? Was there still a fear that the Japanese could pull a dirty trick?
Yeah. Hell, you never knew what they were going to do. When they bombed Pearl Harbor, we sure as hell didn't expect. The only good thing about Pearl Harbor, all of our aircraft carriers were out to sea.
Mm-hmm.
That was the turning point in the war right there. We still had our flying people,
Mm-hmm.
which was good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing that I find amazing is how many of those ships that were sunk at Pearl Harbor were later fixed and raised and
Absolutely,
put back into the war at the end.
absolutely.
So it's pretty interesting.
And the Arizona is still there exactly the way it is, and all the guys are still underneath there.
Mm-hmm.
I got to go over and visit there, and it's sobering to
Yeah.
stand on the Arizona. It is sobering.
Did you get to go aboard the USS Missouri when you were in Pearl Harbor?
I was there. I don't think I ever got to go on the Missouri.
Okay.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, so getting back to whenever you served, were there any instances where at that time in the war there probably wasn't even a submarine threat from the Japanese anymore? Is that correct?
That's pretty much right.
Mhm.
Yes, that's pretty much right.
Did you travel in a convoy?
Yeah, my convoy was a lot later than that. When I was in Japan, I was on an LSM, and they for some reason, wanted to go down to Subic Bay in the Philippines. So we had 8 LSMs, and we went down, and it took us quite a while to go from Japan to Subic Bay. And I was there for about 3 weeks, and they I got off the LSM and came home. In fact, I came home in 46, September of 46 of 1946. And when I went underneath there, there was a guy standing next to me, a boatswain mate, and he said, "Hey, if you got any money in your pocket, throw it overboard. It's good luck." I've got 4 bits under the Golden Gate Bridge, and it's still there as far as I know. True story. And I did happen to have a 4-bit piece. How in the hell it come I ever had 4 bits, I'll never know. In the Navy, they did. Most of the Navy stuff we got paid was in $2 bills. And the reason the Navy did that, they wanted to know when they went into port, by God, the Navy's here spending money.
Ah, okay, interesting.
True $2 bills. In fact, I still got the first $2 bill that I paid in my pocket right now.
So can you explain what when you say 2 bits? Is that a dollar? How much is 2 bits?
50 cents.
50
A
cents.
4-bit piece.
Okay.
4 bits. You didn't even know what a 4-bit piece was, did you?
No, actually, I mean I've always heard about it, but I've never
Well,
known for sure exactly
if I
what
could,
that is.
if I could go and get a diver, we could go down and find out what a 4-bit piece really looks like after it's been in there since 1946.
Be a big gob. Big
Yeah.
gob of coral.
True.
So, okay, so whenever you arrived in Tokyo, how much time did you spend in Japan itself?
Well, let's see. Now you're testing my ability to remember how long.
Were you
I
there?
was there. Uh, I'll have to tell you, I was there until September of 1946. That's when I came home.
So what did you do the
And
entire time you were in Japan? What was your mission? What was your
my
duty?
my 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 tour in Japan was in the engine room of and I actually happened to be at that time I was on the LSM 50.
Okay.
So I went through three 368 and 195 and a 50.
Okay.
And as far as I know, all of those all those LSMs were taken to different places in the United States, and they wanted something out there to stop the water. So my LSMs are sitting on the bottom someplace out on the East Coast.
Really?
That's true.
Mm.
You couldn't find an LSM. I'll take that back. In and let's see. Well, it had to have been 19 or year 2000. They found an LSM over in Greece, and they towed it back over to Nashville, and we had a reunion of the LSM group, and we went back there, and we had a reunion on it, and I and I took my wife with me, and she said, "You actually were in the ocean on this?" And I said, "Yeah, that's true story."
So I remember seeing
Yeah,
that story. Was there a bunch of veterans that actually sailed it back, or did they tow it?
absolutely. Well, no, they actually had it was towed back.
Okay.
It was not runnable on itself, and we took it back, and we actually got to go on board, and I got pictures of that of us going on board that LSM,
So was it restored?
and I can't remember what the number was. It wasn't any one that I was on, so but I know exactly what it was all about.
So for that year that you were in Japan, you said you were in the
Yeah,
engine. Were you in the engine room the entire time? What they have? I mean,
yeah,
were you
that's
moving
right.
around a
That
lot?
that
Was the ship moving a lot?
yeah, no, that was my job. I actually got to be fireman first class, so I was really top dog,
Okay.
first class, which is about as low as you can get.
So were you guys going around to different areas of Japan and doing like humanitarian things? What was it you were doing?
Absolutely, we did go on shore. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
How,
and we generally had 4 or 5 of us, and we did not pack any guns. We did not. We had them, but we did not pack them.
how did the civilian
So
population treat you or
they
react?
were always very nice. They really were. And the Japanese that I know is Konnichiwa kudasai. That's good afternoon, madam.
Ah, okay.
That's all the Japanese, and that was just to be polite.
Mhm. So whenever you were ashore, did you come across any former military, Japanese military?
Uh, Not really.
Mm.
I can't ever remember any. I can't. I'll take that back. We did see some. We did see some in Yokosuka was where we were actually stationed. We were tied up in Yokosuka, and that was the lower end. And then there was Yokohama and Tokyo as you
Okay,
went up. And we could actually get on a train and go to which we did, Yokohama and Tokyo.
okay. Did you happen to go to Hiroshima or Nagasaki at all?
Did not, did
Okay.
not go there.
Mhm.
Did not.
Okay. Um, so what was the destruction? How did the countryside look and how did the cities look at the end of the war?
It was pretty well flattened. It was bombed. All of them were bombed. A lot of fire bombs. There wasn't much left. Really wasn't. But we went in and put it back together better than what it was before it was bombed. The United States was very good in doing that.
Mhm.
Really. Yep. And right now, Japan would not be where it is now if it hadn't been for the United States.
Mhm. Well, that's interesting. Uh, so at the end of the war, whenever you rotated back to the U.S., uh,
Hmm.
were you met with a lot of fanfare and everything when you got back to the West Coast?
Well, I got to go to the Tuxedo in Prescott and have a beer, so that's about as good as you get.
So, okay, so at that point, you got back to the US. Were you immediately released from the military, or did you have any more time to serve?
No, well, I got home in September of '46, and I had not gone to college, but I thought, well, I better go to college so I can really learn something. And I did. I did go. Enrolled at WSU, and I found out that I probably knew about as much or more than they did. So I quit and went to farming. So I've been a farmer ever since.
So when you were studying in college, you were studying agriculture?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Yep. And there be, yeah, and I'll never forget the English class. There were 300. Most of us were veterans, and most veterans at that time, what the hell are we doing here? You know, and that's about the way it was.
Yeah.
It was.
So, so whenever you, so did you, was that the main benefits of the GI Bill that you were able to
Yes,
use?
I did. I did get. Yep, and they did very well with it. I was appreciative of it because hell, at that time we didn't have any money,
Mhm.
and they provided food and the college stuff. So
Great.
I used all of mine up
Did you
right
use
there.
it to buy any farm equipment?
Did what?
Did you use the GI Bill to help buy any farm equipment?
Well, if it would have been damn small because there wasn't much money there.
Well, I guess what I mean is there's a veteran that
Yes,
I
I know
interviewed
what
that
you're
was
talking
a
about.
farmer, and yeah,
At that time, you had to have a good banker. And Baker Boyer, I got to know all the personnel there, and I still know them. We still do our business with Baker Boyer and Walla Walla.
okay,
Yeah, they're still our bank.
great. Yeah, there was a veteran that I interviewed that came back from the European theater, and he used the GI Bill not for college, but for just some vocational training and to get a loan to buy his first tractor for his farm. And that put him at the front of the.
Yeah,
He got to go to the front of the line because everyone was needing equipment at the end of the war because there had been
that's true.
rationing and everything going on. So
I remember our first tractor I got was a TD6, which is a little international, and I paid a whole $15,000 for it.
woo,
Tractors right now are about 400,000.
yeah,
we, we, we knew how to get along with stuff that had been used some. We did a lot of stuff with used equipment.
yeah, yeah.
Still do.
So did you have any other brothers or any other family members that served?
I had a sister that was older than I was. She was 4 years older, and she always tried to boss me around a lot when I was a kid. But so other than that, though, and she just passed away last year, and she was 97.
97.
My mother lived to be 95. So my genes are pretty good, and I will be 95 in next March. So my gene ratio was very good,
Good,
or I wouldn't
good.
be here. Yeah, I miss all the bad stuff that you're supposed to have, like diabetes. I never had any
Well,
of
look,
that,
that's
so we were
great.
very lucky.
That's great.
Very lucky.
So,
Yep. You are what your genes are.
mhm. So do you have are there any other stories or anything like that that you want to cover that maybe we haven't covered?
Probably the Navy stories probably would not be adaptable for what we're talking about right now.
Well, like I said, this is all yours. So this is your story. So if you want this
Well,
documented,
anyway,
it is your call. So
I'm very lucky to be where I was and how I came about it. I really was. When a farm boy from Prescott can spend his 19th birthday in Tokyo, Japan, that's a good story.
yeah. So did you get to see much more of Japan other than, as you said, you went to a few cities and everything, but did you get to see
Well,
much of the countryside or anything?
yeah, I got to spend my spend my birthday. In fact, I've got a picture up there, and there's 4 sailors around, and we're in a park in Japan. Beautiful park. They had really parks. They really had excellent parks. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think at this point, I don't really have any additional questions for you. Is there anything looking back, when you look back on your service in the war and in the military, is there anything
Well,
that jumps out or that you learned or that had impacted you?
I've always been thinking the United States is the best place in the world, and I still believe that. And Prescott, Washington, uh, when in my class, there were 20 people, and there were 10 boys, and every one of us joined the service except one, Ernie Collard, and he was a minister. So every one of our class joined.
Hmm.
So I thought that was a very good ratio.
It's pretty amazing how
It was
the spirit and the country,
very,
the
very,
patriotism.
very patriotic.
Yeah,
Very patriotic.
yeah.
Yeah, and still are.
Hmm.
In fact, I'm still the last one of the class of '45, though, so I outlived all of them.
Oh, really?
And that's on account of you got good genes.
Yeah. So, what was your impression of the U.S. Navy? What was your impression of, how, we fought the war and how things were handled at the end and everything?
Well, you never think that the top dogs are as good as you are. We're the bottom dogs, and they were the top dogs, and we always thought they made us a lot of stupid stuff. It actually all turned out all right, though.
Hmm.
And when they had the signing, I thought it was well done
Hmm.
in Tokyo Bay.
Hmm.
And there were at that time there were over 200 Navy ships there, and now I wouldn't guess, but we don't have any carriers or battle wagons or LSMs.
That's all right.
Just pick it up and hit the off
Sure.
That's okay.
I can edit this out. So,
Okay, well that's all right. That's life.
so you were saying that we don't have any aircraft carriers or
Nothing.
none of those
No.
ships are left.
Most of our stuff now is submarine.
Hmm.
And I have a grandson. I got a deal right here. He was on a submarine, and he would go out for 3 months at a time, and never, you might say, and never see the top of the water.
Wow.
And he just got home a year ago,
Hmm.
and he said 3 months at a time, and we are practically that's what all of our force is now,
Hmm.
submarines. It really is.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the part that the Navy that I knew is not there anymore.
Hmm.
but
Yes. Well, I tell you what, on my end, I don't have any further questions. Does anybody there in the room with you have a question for you or anything?
I don't know, but my good friend right here is sitting here. What do you got, Carl? You got any good questions? I know you were Army, so I know you
Yeah,
got
yeah.
anything good to say about
Yeah,
that.
it gave us a ride when we needed to go somewhere.
That's exactly right. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
And Marines, one of my cousins was a Marine. He said, "Yeah, you damn Navy guys, you take us and then you even shoved us off to get out of there, so you get the hell out of there." I said, "We were the smart ones."
Carl, tell him that Jack was a valedictorian.
Oh crap!
Oh yeah, Jack was the valedictorian of his class.
It was a small
Wow.
class, so. And the lady just called in and said that she was a teacher, so she looked up all that good stuff on the wall.
You told me.
Oh, did I really? God, I didn't know I would say that.
So when you said that you went to college and you knew more than the teachers, then you're not kidding.
I thought I did. It didn't take me too long to find out that I knew more about farming than I did about English. So I
Well,
still farm the same ground. My granddad came here in 1898, and we still farm the same ground,
well, that's
which I
great.
think. And I'll have to say, we do a better job of farming now than we did then, because then we had a plow, And if you had a clod out there any bigger than a rat turd, it was a no good deal. So, but now we don't work it like we used to, and we still raise good crops. So
Great.
we, we raise enough wheat to keep people supplied.
Yeah. So are you purely a wheat farmer then, or do you have any livestock?
Used to.
Yeah.
I used to run a lot of cattle,
Mhm.
like 30 head,
Mhm.
and I know how to pull a calf upside down and in and out.
All right. Well, hey, Jack. I don't have any further questions. Unless you have anything else you'd like to add, we can go ahead and wrap it up. Is there anything you want to say in
Well, I'm
closing?
surprised that you want to talk to a bunch of old farts like I am. But anyway, I'm glad I got to speak with you, and
Sure.
I think you've done a very good job.
Well, no problem at all. It's my honor, to be honest with you. And I'm glad that Eric was
Okay,
able
and
to
you
hook
can
us
edit
up.
out all the Navy stuff if you want to, but it's true.
Okay, well, great. Well, hey, do you want any copies of this for your family? And if so, how many?
Yes, I would like to.
Okay, how many copies do you think you like?
Oh, give me about 4 if you could. I would
Sure.
appreciate it.
4 copies, no worries. So.
The kids will know I was doing something besides going down to hardware and having coffee.
Well, okay.
And Ryan, hey Ryan, we can get those from you as well.
Sure.
Just give them to your wife, and we'll get them on the 7th, and we'll ship them to Jack.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'm with very good people there. They're taking care of me.
That's good. You got some good people there with you. That's
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
So Jack, what LSMs were you on?
I was on the 368, the
368?
159, and the 80. The last one that I ended up with when I left it down at Subic Bay was the 80.
Okay.
Yeah. And there were 8 of us that went down. We had them all tied up. And I actually heard after we tied them up, the Chinese got them all.
So that's what they look like right there.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's it.
That's a 60 right there. So.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. That's it.
I just pulled a picture up off of Wikipedia, Ryan.
Okay. Great.
Of an LSM, and I don't know if I'd want to go across the ocean in an LSM. I think that might.
You got to be a damn fool to go across the ocean in an LSM.
So Jack, you said.
Especially when you guys heaving all the time.
Yeah.
So Jack, you said you were on the 368, the 159,
the 159, and the 80.
The
80 was the last one.
Okay,
I think I told you 50 one time, but okay. It's very easy to go from 50 to 80.
Okay, all right, good deal.
Yeah, that's true.
So whenever you were in the engine room, were you seasick? Because you were down below decks most of the time?
Well, if I was, I never told anybody.
Well, that would be a heck of a job, I think, to be down below decks most of the time, manning the engines for months at a time.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's a deal that it happened, and I'm glad it happened, but it won't happen again with me because I'll be 95 my next birthday.
All right. Well, hey.
I can think about it and almost get seasick. Almost.
Well, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Jack, Merry Christmas to you. Pleasure to meet you.
Well, it's been a pleasure doing this.
Sure.
It really has.
Well, good. No problem.
I think you know what you're doing too.
Well, I hope so. If not, then we're all in trouble, I guess. Here. So,
yeah.
Okay. Well, whatever. If you have nothing more to add, then we'll probably go ahead and move on to Carl then.
Probably be a good time to quit.
So I will bring Ryan. I'll bring photos back home with us. Okay. And the signed documents.
Okay.
And then we will have you scan them, and we'll send them right back to Jack with the DVDs you got.
Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll incorporate those photos into his video.
Awesome.
I'll try to place them in there that way. If he's talking about things that he's described, then we can actually just put them in the video.
Do you guys see the pictures, Mr. Fairfield, right now?
Sure. Yeah. Let me see what you got.
Okay. Just a little.
I was in Japan at that time.
Which one's you?
Is that one of the parks?
Which one's you?
Yes, I was a park in Japan, Tokyo.
In Tokyo.
It was actually in Tokyo.
Is this one you?
Yeah, you got me picked out right. Didn't you see that young looking guy?
It's this one right there.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool. So is that a fountain there? Is that a fountain you're around, or?
Yes, it is. Okay. It was, and it was a Tokyo park. That was my birthday in 1946.
Okay, very cool.
And I'll have to say that a couple of us drank a little beer that day too.
Here's another picture of him.
Hey, you're a good-looking young kid, man.
Yeah. Well, then look at this one. That's what I signed up with.
I'll get it off.
3873965. That's my serial number.
You look pretty young in that one.
Yeah, I was. Well, actually, I was actually 18 at that time because I joined when I was 70. If you wait until 18, you might not get to go where you want. And I was very pleased with the Navy.
Good.
Really.
I hear they feed you good in the Navy. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, let's put it this way. We always had 3 meals. Some of them were what you call really great, but we never starved. We had good Navy cooks. We did.
Good.
And if you want to get in trouble, don't get trouble with the cooks because you would eat not good. True stories.
Well, okay. Well, hey, is that all? Is that it for the pictures then, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan. What else do you need me to bring back with me when I come?
I think that's it, really, Eric. I mean, just the paperwork, and it's just those 2 sheets of paper, and then any photos
That
you've
was
got
in there
that I can scan,
when
and
I got home when I was on
that'd
a
be it.
basketball trip back to New York.
Okay. Awesome. All right.
Great.
This is another story.
What is that?
You don't know what that is?
No.
Good grief.
Hey, listen, he's my dad. Blame him.
That's why I brought this picture.
Okay.
When you scald those hogs, you'd knock all the hair off with this. I don't think too many people even know what the hell that is.
Okay, I'll put it in the picture.
Wow.
That's a deal that scrape hair off of hogs. That was my granddad and all of his brothers, and I think there's 18 head of hogs there, and that's what they.
So how does that tool work? How do you use it?
Well, you put the hogs in hot water and then you scrape them with this steel. Take it off them, and they'd be very slick then after you got done.
That's awesome. Okay. Oh, there's a. I'll bring this back so you can scan that too. A newspaper article.
That's in an LSM.
It's in an LSM. It says Papa Jack was the real McCaw of the Navy LSM fleet.
Bad puns. Wow.
I'll bring it out to you so we can get a picture of it.
Yeah, sounds great.
I'm not telling you anything that's not true.
Never would Jack McCaw lie.
No, you know, especially when you're top of the class.
Valedictorian.
Yeah.
Hey, when you're nearly 95, I think that's okay. When you're nearly 95, I think it's just fine for you to have a few lies. So don't worry about that.
Tell him about your mother and father and you enlisting. Did you tell that story?
Yeah. I told my dad I was going to enlist, and my mother said, "You are not." But guess what? My dad and I went down to the post office in Walla Walla, and I enlisted.
What did your mom say about that?
My mother did not care for it at all. You know, it's a very, very good possibility you might get shot.
By your mom, maybe.
Yeah. But my dad and I, well, my dad went right along with me, so I was no problem there.
Did your dad serve in World War I by any chance?
Yes.
He did.
What's that
Did
now?
your dad serve in World War I by any chance?
No, he did not.
Okay.
No, my dad did not. He was not quite old enough.
Okay.
Or he would have. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was back in 1917. That was a long time ago. Well, hell, 1990, 1945 was a long time ago, too. 70 plus years.
Yeah, sure.
I'm lucky to be here.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm there was a little town called Prescott and Waitsburg, and Waitsburg is just 8 miles from Prescott, and that's my home now, Waitsburg. Yep, it's been a good place. I don't plan on moving. Well, I'll probably go up to where I'm been buried. In fact, this hadn't been that long ago. I was up there and I fell right in front of the grave thing there. And I said, you know what? If I'd have had a shovel, I could have dug myself right in, but I didn't do it. True story.
Well, you don't need to be, thinking about head to the grave too early. I think you got some more work to do, don't you?
Oh hell no, we got a lot of eating yet to do.
Yeah. Well, Jack, Merry Christmas to you. And
Well, same to you.
yeah.
I've enjoyed doing this, and I think you run a good program. I know you're with good people.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Well, if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and get Carl on here, and we'll talk to him about his experiences and everything, and then let you guys
His
have your
son's
day
right
back.
here.
Yeah, we'll get Jack out of that seat. We'll put Dad in the seat, and you guys can start that process.
That's
Okay.
really good.
And Ryan, I sent you a picture of his dog tag and a picture of his what is that? ID card.
Awesome.
That's my ID
Okay,
card.
perfect.
God, I looked
I don't think I'll take those. Those are his. I'll keep them with him, and then I'll bring the
Sure.
other stuff back. So
Okay.
They look forlorn here. That looks forlorn.
forlorn.